So let's talk about React. Does anyone know what React is? It's an app. No, it's not an app. No. Oh, that was close. You know when the ball is going through the goal and it goes outside. You said everything perfect apart from the last word. It's one of the most popular JavaScript frameworks. No, it's not a framework. Library. What's the difference between a framework and a library? Who cares, right? In reality, there are. If you go to a big conference, I've been doing international JavaScript conferences as a speaker. You see how serious people. No, it's a framework. No, it's a library. Come on, let's go outside. Wait. Maybe it's not that important, right? So a framework is something big, something that drives you through the process of creating an app. An example of popular framework could be, for instance, Angular. Do you know Angular? Yeah, Angular. Who was the creator of Angular? Does anyone know who created Angular? Google, correct, in summer 2011, long time ago. Yeah. At that time, the king of JavaScript libraries was jQuery. You have a jQuery? Don't learn jQuery. Don't trust anyone trying to teach you jQuery. Yeah, because it's dead 8 years ago. In JavaScript time, 8 years is like 200 years in human time, right? Because this evolves so quickly. So we got jQuery, then we got Angular, and now we got React. So who is the creator of React? It's Facebook. Yeah, so there was a big fight between Google and Facebook to control the web, because the owner of the web controls everything today in IT, right? So both jQuery, Angular, and also React, they run on top of JavaScript. Okay? JavaScript is the most popular language in the world. There is nothing compared to JavaScript. Yeah, some people say Python. No, it's a big difference. JavaScript is more popular than the second and the third combined, according to GitHub. More popular than Python and Java. It's a huge difference. And the gap is just increasing year after year. Yeah, I've been using JavaScript since 2002 when it was nowhere. So I've seen how the child has grown. Yeah. So if you want to code professionally, JavaScript is one of the best decisions you can take, because every software company needs JavaScript developers. Why JavaScript? Do you think is it any better? Is it sexier? Is it more performant? Is it easier to program than other languages? Why JavaScript and not others? Any idea? No?
Supports more libraries.
What second?
Support more libraries.
No. No. So library support is the consequence of the popularity, right? But why it's so popular?
Is the client side one, and then everything these days is either web or mobile?
I like that. JavaScript was the only language that in 1995 got married to the web browser, yeah, to Netscape. If you are old enough, you'll remember Netscape, right? At that time, a web browser wasn't that important, right? So in 1995, Netscape said, hey, who wants to marry me? No one cared, right? Apart from JavaScript. And because of that, now everyone everywhere has a web browser. And as a side effect, everyone everywhere has JavaScript. That's the only reason. With JavaScript, you can build universal apps. You build an app once and it works everywhere. There's nothing like that, right? You cannot do that with any other language. Right, so this is JavaScript. Yeah, it's the most popular programming language in the world. And as a side effect, there are multiple tools on top of it. Right, so today let's talk about React. So we talk about the past, right? jQuery, Angular, React. What will happen next? No one knows, right? No one knows. But there is a big rival in the horizon. Who is the rival of React today? It's Vue, correct? Who is behind Vue? Ah, that's the thing. It's not Huawei, but close. It's Chinese, yeah? So let's see what happened. It's by the first time in many, many years that the Americans may not dominate the wall of software, but we'll see. For now, the thing is, in Europe and US, React is clearly the king. If you move to China, they don't even know what React is, right? And if you check GitHub stars, which measures the popularity of a library, of a repo on GitHub, they are like, it's a big close battle. Right, so after these 4.5 minutes of talking, let's do some coding. So, right, what we got today. So the first thing we need is to create React app. So, and what that means? Well, there are multiple ways to start working with React. But fortunately, Facebook had a good idea, which is creating like an app launcher. It's a system, it's a command line tool that just by running a command, you can have your skeleton, your Hello World app. That simplifies a lot the process of installing dependencies, plugins, and stuff like that. You don't need to look after any of these things. You run one command, and then you start coding. So it's very, very convenient. I'm assuming everyone has Node. If you don't know if you have Node or not, you can always type Node -v, and it will tell you the version of Node that we are using. I hope you get version 10, 9, something modern. If you got version 3, it's maybe time to, get a haircut and stay a bit up to date with life, right? So you get Node, and then the way to install Create React App, even though this is on the YouTube video, but I'll refresh everyone in case you need it. So you can do npm install -g. What -g stands for, guys? Global, correct. It will install the app launcher in your system globally. If you're a Windows user, all good. If you're a Mac or a Linux user, you may have problems because of security. Yeah? Suddenly, someone is trying to install something globally. If that's your case, remember to type sudo on the left. Yeah? That will run that command as an administrator. So you have full access, full power, right? So sudo npm install -g and then create das react das app, 2 piece. That will install the engine to bootstrap React applications. Yeah, I've done that already. Also, if you did that already, you can also check the version of Create React App. Type in Create React App -version. Does it work with -v? No, it doesn't. Thank you for nothing. -version. That's it. Yeah. So in my case, I got 2.1.3. If you've recently installed Create React App, you may have noticed version 3 is installed. Version 3 is 1 month and 3 days old. It's not stable yet. Yeah, as some of you have noticed already, it's giving issues, especially on Macs. So anyway, we got Node, we got Create React App. It's time to bootstrap our application. So the way you create the skeleton of your application is very simple. The only thing you need to do is to type Create React App. Some of you have done that already, so you don't have to do that again. And then the name of the app, right? In our case, what are we going to build? That's up to you, to be honest, right? It's not that important, the topic. But because we need to select a topic, in my case, I'll do that. Hollywood movies. So I'm going to create an app where I can display movies and show the title, the cover, an image, all these things, right? So Create React App Hollywood movies. So after pressing enter, you'll see that now Create React App is looking after all the dependencies that every piece of software, modern software, requires to start working. Lots of things are being downloaded, right? Installing React, React DOM, React blah, blah, blah. Many, many, many things. You can see the progress. It may take a couple of minutes. Yes, as a curiosity, yeah, in the 90s, when you started a JavaScript project, it was index.js, index.html, and index.css, yeah? Your first JavaScript project has 1 kilobyte size, or even less than that. Do you know how much disk space you need to run after running that command? It's like 350 megs, right? Which is huge, just to get nothing, to get a hello world. But hey, it's what it is, right? This is modern software development, for the good and for the bad. Right, so this is almost ready. And in the meantime, what we can do, this is going to create a new folder in your system. And that folder will have all the dependencies of your project. That means we can open the folder with a text editor. In the YouTube video, I recommended you to use Visual Studio Code. Yeah? Visual Studio Code is, by the first time, the most popular IDE in the world. So do you know who is supporting VS Code?
Microsoft.
It's Microsoft. And do you know why it became so popular? C#. No, we're mixing things. So one thing is Visual Studio, which is the old editor, the purple one for C#, ASP.NET, and now we've got VS Code mainly, but not only for JavaScript. So VS Code is similar to things like Sublime. You know Sublime, like Atom, all these things, but it has some key differences. First of all, it's open source. Sublime is not open source. You got monthly updates with Sublime. You never know when's the next version coming. It's supported by a big company, which is Microsoft. And more importantly, it's written in JavaScript. Yeah. So if we want to become successful JavaScript developers, we should trust JavaScript tooling. I've been using it since 2015. I participated in one of the international Google conferences about JavaScript, and I realized that all the Google employees, they were using it. And they said, why are you using that editor? And they convinced me. And it's true. Now it's super popular. So that's fantastic. Let's use it. Again, we are not very opinionated. If you have any favorite IDE, feel free to use it, right? It depends on your appetite. Right, so because I do like VS Code, I'll open it. And then essentially what we need to do is to open the folder that we just created in our file system. And how do we do that? Well, you'll see a button called Open Folder, a link called Open Folder. If you don't get that, you can also go to the menu, File, Open. That's up to you, right? There are many different ways to perform the same action. So I'll click on Open Folder, and then you need to find where your app is. If you're a Mac or a Linux user, it will be in your home directory. In my case, it's my home directory, right? So I can immediately see the folder I created on top. If you're a Windows user, again, it depends on where you install the project. But I'm sure you know how to navigate through C/users/documents, whatever. Yeah? So feel free to navigate through your file system until you find the project. So you click on it, one click, and then open. And then the project is already loaded in VS Code. This is great because if we restart the laptop, next time we access it, it will be there already. All right, so the first thing we need to do when we start working with React or with any piece of JavaScript is to start the server. How do we start the server? Do you know the command? npm what? Start, correct. And now the question is, where do we run npm start? Some of you may be thinking, hey, in the terminal. But in which terminal? In that terminal?
In your folder.
In what?
In your folder. In your folder.
In app folder, but we need the terminal, we need the command line, right? So technically speaking, we can run it here, but I'll tell you something. I'm not a big fan of using the external terminal. Why? Because in the Codini bootcamp, we look after productivity. We try to write more to create more in less time. And to me, this goes against productivity, right? Because we ran out of light. Sorry. Is it off? Here you go. Thank you, Walter. Sorry, guys. We got technical issues. That's it. So, to me, what's the problem? If we run the server here, we can do that definitely. What happens if there is something wrong? Generally speaking, our attention is not on that window, right? So we are working between VS Code and the browser. If something goes wrong, we may take few seconds to notice. Because of that, I'm going to recommend you something. Instead of using the external terminal, VS Code comes with an integrated terminal. So we can see the server in here. And how do we do that? It's pretty simple. You see view on top, and then terminal. That's it. And boom, you got the integrated terminal at the bottom. This is pretty convenient because now, as some of you proposed, we can simply type, look, npm start. Yeah? And that will start our React server. Look, I didn't do anything, but it automatically opened a new tab in my default browser, which is Google Chrome. And after a few seconds, it will render the default React application. Look at that, that's it, right? So I hope you all got a similar view. This is the React logo, in case that's the first time you see it. Right? So, and that's okay, because that's the way we prove that our setup is correct. Our laptop is essentially ready to start dealing with React. And now please pay attention to the message. Edit, source, app, and save to reload. In other words, React is inviting us to go to VS Code, and on the left-hand side, we're expected to open app.js, src/app.js. if we open it, look at what we got. We got our first React component that Facebook managed to create for us. That code, you know what language is that, guys? HTML. Everyone agree on that? That's not true at all. It looks like HTML. It's very similar to HTML, but it's not HTML. It shares 99% of HTML, but there are some subtle differences. Again, as a starting point, you can think that's HTML. And this is the first beautiful thing about React. It combines HTML-ish with JavaScript. Yeah? Unifies HTML and JavaScript. It can also unify CSS, but that's a bit more controversial, and it goes beyond the scope of this session. At least, I hope we agree that it's great because we can deal with HTML plus JavaScript in a single file. We don't have to keep switching between one file and the other. Then, let me show you another productivity hint. At the moment, we can do some changes, right? So look at what happened if we change, for instance, the title. Instead of edit source line 11, right? I hope you all got line 11. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to type, welcome to the movies app, exclamation mark, something like that, right? As soon as you save the file, look at what happened when I return the control to the web browser. You see, I didn't refresh the browser at all. It happened automatically. This is one of the great things of modern software development. You don't have to refresh the browser every time you change something. Seems stupid, but that's a big change. You save a lot of time and energies. Yeah? So, talking about productivity, at the moment, you see the ping pong I need to do, right, between my IDE and the browser. I change something, and then is it okay? Yes. Change something else, is it okay? No. What's going on, right? Ping pong, left and right. However, if you're a Mac or a Windows user, you know we can snap windows, right? So we can, for instance, have the IDE on the left and the browser on the right. If you're a Windows user, simply drag the Visual Studio to the left and drop it on the left, and likewise do the same with with the browser. If you're a Mac user, the process is slightly different. You need, first of all, to have both windows floating. So if they are maximized, just remove it. So they should be floating around. And then once they are floating, you see my two windows are floating, hold the green button, hold it, and then you see you can snap it on the left or on the right. Left, Visual Studio, right, browser. Why this is so convenient? Because now changing my app is a piece of cake, right? I can go to the right-hand side. If I said, welcome guys, I save it, it's immediate. Yeah, it's pretty convenient. I understand that if you have a very small laptop, like in my case, sometimes it may be a bit tricky, yeah, to see anything, to be productive. But definitely if you've got a 15-inch laptop, to me that's a fantastic setup. Right, any questions so far? No? All right, so once we feel comfortable with the working environment, let's do a bit of React. First of all, yes, that logo is fantastic, but we don't care, right? So let's clean up, let's tidy up, let's remove everything. Not everything, but most of the stuff. So you see we got in line number 7, div class name app. So that's like the root element. That's fine, I'm not against that div. However, everything inside of it, you know, we got weird stuff, we don't care, like links, the logo, title. So I'm going to remove everything. And I'd like to invite you to do the same thing. From line number 8 to line number 21, correct, thank you. So just remove everything, yeah, and then you get nothing, empty, which is fine. Because now we can start working with an empty canvas, right? So first of all, the title. How do we type titles in HTML, guys? H1, I like that. H1, you see? If you type H1, stands for header or heading 1. That means the text inside of it will be massive, will be bold. So now please type the title of your app. So, my movies app, something like that. So once you save it, then you will see on the right-hand side, the title is already there. Fantastic, fantastic. So we want to build a universal app. It should work fine on any device, not only on my laptop, also on tablets, smartphones, everything. Do you know how to enable the device simulator in Google Chrome? No? All right, look. If you do right-click anywhere in the screen, you see a button, an option called Inspect, generally speaking at the very bottom of the context menu. If you click on Inspect, you'll get DevTools, which are very important for debugging purposes. So once you get DevTools, I think if it's the first time, DevTools will be at the bottom, right? But you can change the position, clicking on the three dots on the right-hand side. So let me suggest you to put it to the right. And then once it's on the right, if you pay attention, you get a button on top that says Toggle Device Toolbar. So what happens if we click on that button? If we click on the button, what we'll see is a device simulator. It's hard to see, but I can tell you what's going on here. We can test on Galaxy, Pixels, iPhones, iPads, and you can even add a new device. So we can get a feeling about how our app will look on an iPhone X, which is much cheaper than going on your phone and checking every time, yeah? Again, be careful with that. This is a low quality simulator. It's only simulating the size of the screen. It's not simulating the hardware, the performance, the CPU, nothing like that. But as a first step, it's better than nothing, right? So I'll leave it there. And now, the next thing I would like to do is to display the title of a movie. So tell me, guys, first of all, if the title of my app is H1, how can we display another title a bit smaller? H2, for instance, fair enough, H2, right. And then with H2, tell me a movie, guys. The Godfather, something like that? Yeah. Okay, we got The Godfather. That's the title. And now, you can see that so far, we're just doing HTML. Yeah, but in reality, we are working with React because we are doing HTML inside of a React component. Cool, so we got The Godfather. Before going any further and adding the image, this is one of the benefits of having the console at the bottom. There are some warnings already. Look, compile with warnings. If we were using the external terminal, we may have not noticed that, right? But however, now, look at what's going on. Logo is defined, but never used. What's happened, guys? What's the problem?
The logo being imported.
Because we deleted it, right?
Correct. We removed the logo from the screen, but this is still imported. We'll explain in a minute what that means, but for now, as you can maybe see, line number 2 is grayed out. That means, you are importing something, but you are not using it. That's a waste of resources. So please, either use the logo or delete it. Fair enough. I'll delete line number 2, and then look at the message. Compiled successfully. Yeah? So our application is problem-free. Because of that, now let's display the image for The Godfather. So I'm going to Google. I'll search The Godfather. Feel free to pick your favorite one. Images. And you see we got lots of images about the movie, right? Something I would like to recommend you is to be careful with the aspect ratio of the image. Because if one of the images is very tall, the other one is very wide, the layout will look a bit weird, right? So just as a suggestion, let's make sure that all our images have the same size. Do you know in Google Images, this goes beyond the scope of the session, of course, how to get images of a specific size? Like Full HD, for instance. How do we do that? Tools, correct? Tools, and then you see size, and then exactly. So I would like to, let's try with Full HD, right? So 180, 19, something like that, yeah? Just a random size. Let's see if there is something about Godfather. Of course there is, yeah? So I'll take, which one? I don't know. The first one, fantastic. Let's take it, right? Cool. So you click on the image. I mean, you know this thing, right? How to download the images and stuff like that. So then you got save image as well. That depends on your system, but essentially just download the image. Another question is where do we download the image? Inside of our project. Don't leave it in downloads. Don't leave it in your desktop. Just again find where your project is in your system, and very important, once you find it, let me find it because I don't know what it is. Yeah, here you go. Once you find it, something very important with Create React App is that everything you create, everything, should be inside of the src folder. So please save the file inside of the src folder. If you save it outside, it won't work. Right. And please make sure that it has a decent name, because in my case the name is like 200 characters, right? I don't want to type that manually. So I'll call it the Godfather.
Shall we make a folder in the source folder?
If you want, if you feel brave enough, yes. Ideally in the long term, you can imagine that a professional piece of software may have hundreds or thousands of files and folders. Do you know how many files the Windows 10 operating system has? According to one of their engineers. Anyone? Any clue?
3 million.
It's 4.5 million files. Yeah, it may be complicated to navigate right through the folder system. So yeah, in the long term, it's important to structure our folders correctly.
And when we name anything, the images, shall we do it only one word? Or shall we
That's up to you. It should be, yeah, ideally it should be one word. We'll talk about case in a minute, but just to keep things simple, because the name of the image is sort of an ID, try to keep it in one word. If the movie has any spaces in between, like the space Godfather, try to replace it with hyphens, underscores, or things like that. Yeah? Hi, Natasha. Right, so save the image somewhere, and now you will see on the left-hand side that VS Code automatically capture, like, hey, you added a new image, nice one. So of course you can click on it, and it gets previewed, you know, all these things, right? Cool, so now, does anyone know how to display the Godfather on the screen? We need to do two things.
image, the image tag?
Image tag, that's a good starting point. So, right, we need an image tag, that's HTML, right? If in HTML you want to display an image, you need an image tag. But then what? src, source, correct? And then what?
Equals,
Equals?
and we give out the path.
Oh, not really. Not really. So the way that, I think that the idea makes sense, right? But in React, the way to display images, and also applies to videos and, you know, any multimedia, is two steps. First of all, we need to import the image. You see on top, we got a couple of imports. So please add a new one, import, and then the name of the image, the variable that will hold the image. It doesn't matter what we put here, to be honest. But for readability purposes, let's call it the Godfather. And then, next thing on the right-hand side, space from, and then the location, the relative path to the image. How do we know that? Well, with quotes, then look, we can specify the location of the image. So if you type dot slash, that will open a relative path. Because if you pay attention, my image is on the same folder as my file, right? app.js, the Godfather. They're in the same folder, on the same directory. Because of that, I can simply type the name of the image. The God, not code, father, dot, and the extension, very important guys, dot jpg, right? That's the way you import an image. And now, it's imported, but not displayed yet. If I go to the app, it doesn't even work because of this image tag, which is not finished. But if I remove the image tag, yeah, what is the image? It's nowhere. Why? Because now it's time to decide where in the UI do we want to drop the image, to display it. And how do we do that? Look at the syntax. This is one of the differences between HTML and React. At the beginning is the same, image, source, equals, but then we need to open curly brackets. And then inside of the curly brackets means, hey, some JavaScript will be dropped here. So what JavaScript? The name of the variable, the godfather. Yeah, and once you do that, likewise, as we did on HTML, we close the tag. And then, oh, look, I mean, it's huge, but hey, it's clearly there, right? So we managed to display the image, right? That's the basics about how to add images in React. Do you have any questions?
I'm getting failed to compile.
Okay, so Walter will be able to help you in a minute.
Okay.
Right, question for you guys. The image is huge. Does anyone know, because we are doing, this is mobile first development. In other words, if I'm on desktop, it may be okay, but on mobile, it looks broken, right? It looks broken. Does anyone know how to make sure that our image never goes beyond the viewport, beyond the size of your mobile device? That's a bit of CSS. Let's talk about CSS.
We'll put in some percentage.
Yes, correct. You can see on line number 2 that from our React component, we're importing CSS. In other words, on the menu on the left, you see app.css. So if you open it, you got lots of CSS that by default, Facebook is offering. Do we need any of that? Not really, right? This is related to the spinning logo and all these things. So you know what I'm going to do next, right? Delete it. Yeah, don't leave any garbage. Just start from fresh. Start from scratch. And now, how do we say, hey, if there is an image, make sure it always fits on the screen. You can type IMG, stands for image. So whenever there is an image tag, open and close curly brackets, and then you can do things like that. Max width, 100%. Look, now this is a responsive image. Now it looks perfect. Yeah? Why? Because look, regardless of the size of my screen, I'll show you. You see? I hope you agree that that's responsive. It will always display as big as the screen is. Any questions? No? I got a question for you about a bit of programming culture. So you know, when I type the Godfather, what sort of case are we using? Camel, that's correct. This is camel case, when we got capitals in the middle of the variable name. Why camel?
Easy to read.
No, but why is it called camel and not Brexit? Correct, like it hubs, right? It's the way it works. And what happened if instead of the Godfather, I rename it the underscore Godfather? This is very popular in PHP, if you've done a bit, right? So the Godfather with underscore. What's the name of that? It still works, right? So that's valid. It's okay in JavaScript. It's a bit weird. It's a bit like, hey, where you been in the last 10 years? But it's okay. Snake, correct. Why snake? It was up and down, right? Like the snakes. Why not? And what happened? Go back to the camel. This is a bit more complicated. Camel case means every word starts with capitals except the first one. But what happened if I put a capital in the first one? What's the name of that case? That was very optimistic. That was summer mode. No. There is a way to describe that. What? Well, I never heard about that. Maybe, but I don't know that one. The popular way to describe that is Pascal. Because Pascal is a very old programming language, was the first one to make that syntax popular. And the last one, and is actually the only one that is not supported by JavaScript. You'll see lots of errors in the screen. with a hyphen. You see, it doesn't work. It doesn't like it. What? Kebab case. I like that. That's correct. That's correct. So the modern way to call that is kebab case, because you can imagine that the walls are like the meat, and then you got the blade going through the meat. Yeah. If you are a senior developer, you may have heard also this is Lisp case, because again, Lisp, a very old language, use it. Yeah. Anyway, talking about JavaScript, camel case is clearly the most popular syntax. Do you know when we say the most popular, according to who? Who has the control to decide, hey, now this is going to be uppercase? Is there anyone actually looking after these things? Who?
My lead engineer.
Who?
My lead engineer.
Your lead engineer. But what? Yeah, but that person, yeah, okay, fair enough. But your lead engineer is using that because of someone else, right? Or all the lead engineers in the world, they woke up one day and they decided to do that. No, there is something. What?
Other member of the team, things like that. He wakes up in the morning and decides we are going to use it this today.
All right, cool. So fair enough. So on the industry, fortunately, things work in a bit slightly different way, right? Generally speaking. So there are some standards. Like, no, ECMAScript. This is the standard that looks after JavaScript. This is a group of Swiss people based in something in Geneva in the mountains that every year, every June, that means next month, release a new version of JavaScript. But there's something else. This is not about the standards as such. It's about styling guidelines. How should we indent our files, when to use capitals, when to use lowercase, right? So there are a few very popular styling guides in the world. One is released by Google, but probably the most popular one is released by Airbnb. Yeah, I'm sure you've used Airbnb sometimes in your life, right? So Airbnb has a very powerful style guide. So according to Airbnb, all the variables should be written in camel case. So the community is adopting these guidelines. Cool. So we got the Godfather. Let's do something, guys. Because we got two elements, right? H2 and the image. Let's wrap these two tags into a div. You know a div? A div is an HTML element that can have another element inside of it. I'm just grouping, right? Like in Photoshop when you create layers. That's pretty much the same thing. So I have a div, and inside of my div, I have the Godfather title plus image. So let's add another movie. Can you tell me, guys? Another movie? Titanic. Right. You see, I literally copied the first div, and I pasted it. You see? Titanic. So if we scroll down, the title is there. It's correct. You see? Titanic. But obviously the picture is wrong. Still taking the Godfather. So how do we display the cover for Titanic? You know that already, right? Go to Google, search Titanic, download the image. It's literally the same thing. Let's quickly do it. Let's do it. So, Titanic. And then, first picture, right click, save image as, remember, src folder, Titanic. Coding is about repeating the same process again, and again. What do we need to do to display Titanic? Import, correct. Import Titanic from Titanic.jpg. And finally, displayed at the bottom. Do you think the name of the image matters at all or not? In other words, can I rename Titanic with Brexit? What do you think? Will it work or not? Yes, it doesn't matter, to be honest, what you type here. This is just the name of the variable that you are creating to reference that image. So if I check the app again, you see, it works, right? However, do you think that's a good practice or not? It's not, right? So one of the main problems of software is readability. It's at some point easy to write code, but it's harder to understand others' code. So please create readable code. So I hope you agree that Titanic and Brexit, even though they have some similarities, right? Let's be a bit more specific. And then we got Titanic and Godfather. Last one, guys. Again, copy, new div, Last movie, you tell me. Matrix. Correct. Again, the same process, right? Even quicker this time. We know how to do it. Matrix. And then the first image, right click, save image as, Matrix, SRC, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's simple process once you get used to it. So we got Father, we got Titanic, and we got Matrix from Matrix. So we have the title and then the image, Matrix. So that should work straight away. Look, Godfather, all good, Titanic, all good, and Matrix, all good. So you may be asking, why are we doing that? Because sometimes, in my opinion, the best way to explain something is to show a problem. So what's the problem here? You can see that if we add more pictures, more movies, think about Netflix. How many pictures, how many movies they have? Thousands probably, right? So this doesn't scale. We cannot copy 4 lines every time we add a movie. This just doesn't scale. So let's create a React component. This is arguably the most important piece of functionality that comes bundled with React, components. So a component is a piece of code that you can reuse many, many times in your app. You know, when you want to go on holiday and you go to ba.com or easy or whatever, you select your 2 inputs, right? From and to, the dates. You got the date picker twice. Obviously, they are not copying and pasting the code twice. They have a component and then reuse it multiple times. So that's the same thing. Let's reuse these 4 lines of code. How do we create a component? Look at how simple it is. A component, at least on its very basic shape, is literally a JavaScript function. If you are not very familiar with JavaScript functions, I would like to invite you to our Introduction to JavaScript series that we run here every month. How do we type that code? Very simple. Look, you type function, outside, in between, look, between the import and the function app, not inside of function app, outside, function, and then the name of our component. Let's call it movie. Note the capital M. React components are capitalized. They start with a big character, big letter. So that's the name of the component, movie, open and close parentheses. We'll see why we need that. And then open and close curly brackets. That's a basic function in JavaScript. And then in here, we can return. Let's do a test. Let's return some HTML. Hello. That's the most fundamental component you can write in React. And then, how do we display it? So the component is created, but it's nowhere, right? It's nowhere. Why? Because we are not invoking it. A component is just an HTML tag. That means, look at what happened. We can put it here, movie, like an HTML tag. You see? Open symbol, close / close symbol. And look at what happened. It's very small, but you can see it's there, right? Can we duplicate movie multiple times? Of course we can, right? That's the entire principle behind React components. So now, we don't want to display hello, obviously. We want to display the movies. So let me move the Godfather, which is the first one we wrote. Let me move it to the movie. Something like that, right? And now, let's, instead of Godfather, let's invoke the movie component. Will it work? We'll see if it... No? Why not? We need to add what? Yeah, so the component has been created, and then we're invoking it. You see, line number 18. It does work.
Sorry, the projector is in between, can't see.
Oh, right, it's in the middle. Yes, okay, fair enough. Right, actually the session is live broadcasted. If you go to youtube.com/Codery, you can get the same, probably I should have mentioned at the beginning. Too late, sorry about that. Right, so we got the Godfather, and then I want to replicate movie 3 times for Titanic and Matrix. Do you know what happened if I do that? Correct. Now, we'll have free movies. Good, free movies. However, look at the content of the movies. The Godfather are good. Then I will expect, ideally, to have Titanic. Bad. Oh, Godfather again. And then, do we have Matrix? Probably no, right? Scroll down. Oh, so Godfather is displayed 3 times. Why? Because our movie component is hard coding Godfather all the time. Not good. Does anyone know how to customize the behavior of our movie component?
Pass the parameters.
Pass the parameters, correct. In React, we call them props, properties. So let's learn, for instance, with the title. Look at how sexy, how declarative React is. If I want to have a different title for each movie, I can pass an attribute here, title equals, and then the title, The Godfather. Movie, title equals Titanic. Movie, title Matrix. What do you think, guys? Will this work or not? Correct. Even though we are now invoking our movie component in the correct way, at least to display the title, in reality, look at what happened, guys. Godfather again, all around. Why? Because the component doesn't care. We can send whatever we want, right? The component is ignoring our attributes. So how do we catch, how do we hook these attributes? Correct, we need an argument, that's correct. In React, that argument is in a speaking called props. You can rename it, you can call it Brexit again, it will work, yeah? But the community accepted props as the name of the argument, right? Props. And then props is an object. Again, if you don't know what an object means in JavaScript, please visit us again on the Intro to JavaScript session that will be running every month. So I'm going to remove Godfather. We don't want to display it there hard-coded. And how do we display the title? Look, remove the Godfather. And then, because we want to access a property, a variable, we need to put curly brackets. Do you remember the curly brackets we put on the image? We need them again. And now, how do we access the title?
Props.title.
Correct, props.title. And then, look at what happened. The Godfather, and then, Titanic. Now it's correct. And then we'll have Matrix. It's correct. Yeah? So the titles are right. However, you can clearly see that the images are wrong. So can we pass the images as well here? Can we pass a new attribute with the image? Yeah, of course we can, right? Let's do image equals, look at the curly brackets again. Every time you access a variable, surround it with curly brackets or braces. So the Godfather, I think the image is called The Godfather. One of the things I like about VS Code, yeah, auto-completion. As soon as I start typing, it's suggesting, yes, The Godfather. Titanic, image, Titanic. And finally, Matrix, image, Matrix, yeah? Will it work or not? We got the same problem, right? Even though, again, now we are passing the right image, the component doesn't care. Still displaying the Godfather. So how do we replace the Godfather with the image? Props dot the what? Image, correct. Why image? Because that's what we agree on that. Yeah, we agree on that. Just the name we gave it. Will it work now? Godfather, good. Titanic, good. And Matrix, it does work, right? So that's a very efficient way to escalate our application. Imagine that we're working on that, we got funding, we got $500,000 to develop this app. But then our business analyst says, hey, wait a minute. I think the movie titles are huge. Can we make them a bit smaller? How many lines of code do we need to change? We can change the CSS, of course, but if I don't want to change the CSS, if I want to do it on the HTML,
Only the functions.
correct?
If the function change H2 to H3.
That's it, right? As simple as that. Instead of H2, you change H3 only once, and then boom, it changes everywhere. This is why this mechanism is so sexy. We don't have to change H2 3 times or 3 million times, only once, right? And then I got a very last question for you before jumping to the next block, which will be way shorter, only 15 minutes. What happened if, again, business likes the idea and then decide to add not only the title and the image, but they want to add the year the movie was released to the audience, right? How would you do that?
We'll do another props.
Another props, correct? What's the name of the prop? Year, fair enough. And then value what? Godfather, when was it released? It's pretty old, right?
72?
You made it up or?
No, I'm pretty sure that.
Okay, cool. If you're pretty sure, I'm sure as well, right? So 1972 for Godfather. And then Titanic, year.
1998?
I think it was 97, right?
97.
It was 97. And Matrix?
99.
99. Nice. Cool. And then, what else, guys? I want to display the year on the right-hand side. For instance, The Godfather, parentheses, 1972, close parentheses. How do we do that? I don't want to add another row. I want to display it as part of the title.
Concatenated.
Concatenated. Look, we can do that. Props.year. Look, you see? Oh, and close, sorry. And close the parentheses. You see? Godfather, then Titanic, and then Matrix. Of course, if you don't like that, you can change it. You can add a new line with H5 if you want to make the text a bit smaller, and then gear, colon, whatever, right? You can play around with the UI. That's up to you, depending on your appetite, right? Props.year, right? Let me refresh. You see? The Godfather, 1972, image, Titanic, 97, image, Matrix, 99. So that's essentially the process of creating React components. In the long term, you may want to move your movie component into a new file. You don't want to have all your source code into one file, right? That could be a bit mind-blowing. But apart from that, that's pretty much the process. You create components and components and components and components. Any questions? No? All right, so on the last 15 minutes, I would like to show you the tool that we use here as part of the bootcamp to learn JavaScript, React, and UI, HTML, and CSS. It's free. We created it, so you are more than invited to join it. I know that some of you are playing with it already. So let me show you how it looks like. If you go to codini.com, if it's the very first time, you'll see, or you'll see somehow, right? So let me change picture mode. Something like that, right? So you'll see a big button says play. So if you click on play button, you can start training your skills. Yeah. And why we use that tool? Because that proves how good you are, how talented you are. And this is what we offer to the industry, and that is why our guys get hired so quickly. So once you sign in, you will see that training. Yeah. So literally yesterday we enabled React that was private for bootcampers, but now it's public, at least beginners. So if we select React, we have 3 levels of difficulty, right? So let's do beginner. We can select a topic about React. So let's do props, for instance, right? Because we've been doing props today. So for each topic, we'll get 5 questions. And for these questions, we need to type some code on the right-hand side. So look, the first question. We are expected to create a welcome component, and we're going to pass a property called user. This is what we did a minute ago, right? Instead of movie title, we got welcome user. And then the goal, the objective is to return welcome to React, name of the user. On the right-hand side, it's time to write some code. If it's the first time you deal with that, you get this walkthrough where we help you to understand how the platform works and all the features, right? But for now, does anyone know how to return welcome to React and then the name of the player? How do we do that? Yeah, props of what? Name? Are you sure? User, correct. Props to the user, right? What do you think, guys? Will this work or not? Yes? Should we evaluate it? Should we press the blue button? Let's try that, right? Look, pay attention to the screen, please. Yes, it works, right? And that's fantastic because we managed to satisfy the expectations. However, if you look at the details, what that means, guys? Missing semicolon. Yeah, that means that even though our code works, it's all good, confetti all around. In reality, we're missing the semicolon. So through the platform, we encourage you with the good practices. You remember when we talk about coding style guides? So this is a style guide. Add a semicolon at the end of each line. Right, so that's correct, guys. So let's check the next question, number 2. What we got here? Look at the question. So we want to display some probably American presidents, right? We got a president component. First name Bill, last name Clinton. And then look at the way it works. So does anyone know what the dot means? Class, correct. So we are expecting you to add an element with class first name and another element with class last name. So on the first name, we'll display first name Bill, on the last name, first name Clinton, whatever we are providing here. So let's do that. So let's add a div, class first name, something like that, and then the same with the last name. So how do we display that text, guys? First name, colon, Bill. First name. How do we get the name of the president? Props what? Like that? Props to the first name? Curly brace, you're right. Remember, every time you access JavaScript variables, surround them. Otherwise, that will be displayed as it is. Props.first name, hard-coded. We wouldn't want that. We want to interpolate. And then, same with the last name, right? Last name and props to the last name. What do you think, guys? Right? No? You're not convinced? Why not? Yes. Yes, that's correct. Class name. You remember at the beginning of the session, I asked, what's that? And you said HTML. This is HTML, but that's not valid in React. Subtle, but very important detail. In React, if you want to add a class, which is something that you need to do every single day of your life, in reality, you cannot use class. You know why not? Correct. Class is a keyword in JavaScript. Yeah? You can create classes. Starting from 2015, you can create classes. So we need to find an alternative. React says, instead of, if you want to add a CSS class, do you know what we need to type? Class name. That's correct. Class name. And class name. Will this work or not? Are you sure?
It doesn't work.
Why not?
You need to put it out. You have to concatenate the props.
We are concatenating the props. Can anyone see where the problem is as a gentle way to say you're wrong?
There is no semicolon.
Well, semicolon, that's an elegance thing, right? Okay, fair enough. I'll put it. It should work, right? See, no one can see the problem? Really? It's an obvious, a big one, huge one. Say again? Correct. What happened on the last name, guys? Line number 7, if you can see anything on the screen. Let's try that. I mean, yeah. That's work for sure. It's okay. No problem. I'm the next rock star of software development. And then, oh, last name Clinton. What's going on? Look, we are telling you when we fail, we're telling you, hey, we expected you to return last name Clinton, but you return first name Clinton, which is not right. And then you quickly notice that, oh, because of the copy and paste I forgot to put last name. Does it make sense? Should we try again? Why not? Confetti? Yes, right? So question sorted. One more? Last one. So on question number 3, it's pretty similar. The main difference is how many attributes, how many properties are we passing? Only one, person. But the problem is that person is not a string or a number like we've been doing so far. It's an object. You see? So properties can be a bit more complicated in that particular case, and that's the last question, I promise. So it's a similar process, right? We need to create 2 elements, name and score. Yeah, and then display the name and the score. So let's do that. Look, we got the problem half done already. So name, we'll see what to put here, and then same thing with the score, right? Let's look after indentation, score. But now the question is, how do we access? Let me copy that. In reality, I'll add the command on top. So this is our variable called person. So this is props.person. So how do we display the name? No, you are right. Props.person, that will refer to the object, and then we can use the dot notation to drill down. Dot name. Again, we covered that on the intro to JavaScript session. Yeah? Props.name of the person. And likewise, how do we get the score? Props.person.score. Yeah, nothing else, nothing more. And that should be it. Can you spot any problem, guys? No? Will it work? Let's try it. Let's try it. It does work. Yeah? Which is good. I'll skip the next 2 questions just to give you an idea about what happened next. So once you are done with the challenge, you can review the missing questions, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, where the power is here. This is the reason why the guys got a job here, because we are evaluating how good you behave. You get a score from 0 to 100. And then you can see for every question different metrics, tenacity, how many questions you've completed, accuracy, how many times you submitted and you fail. I think I failed once or twice, right? Speed, how long it took you to complete the challenge. Focus, how many times you went to Google or to Stack Overflow to get help. And finally, last but not least, elegance, how standard your code is according to the industry leaders. Right, so once we got that, we also run challenges. Actually, tomorrow here we have a JavaScript challenge. So what a challenge means? A challenge is an exercise where everyone is trying to solve the same questions at the same time. And then after the challenge, we review the results one after the other, side by side. So I would like to show you, for instance, one we played literally this morning, expert. I was expert JavaScript. So if I click on it, you can see here all the guys who have participated side by side, yeah, and then we can compare the scores, so we can see how efficient, how productive every player is with JavaScript. We try to make a big show, not a big show, but you know, we get the scores, who finished 10th, who finished 9th, you know, all these sort of things, right? And finally, you can also compare the code. Look, check in detail analysis. So that means that for every single question, this is expert, right? So the code could be a bit tricky to understand. But for every question, yeah, you can see who is wrong and who is right, green and red. And also you can compare, look, for instance, Walter, he solved the question this morning, but someone else solved the same question writing less lines of code. So it's a good exercise to compare different coding styles, right? So over time, you go through the leaderboards. So here you can see the best player of the day, of the week, of the month, best player ever. We got Google employees, Facebook employees, many people joining. And then finally, the Hall of Fame, many statistics. So we've done about 8,000 training exercises so far in 6 months. Statistics by country, which country has the best developers. Yeah, many different statistics. Yeah. So again, the platform is free to use, so feel free to train. And just because we delivered it literally yesterday, very quickly, if you like the CSS, the UI part, starting from literally yesterday, the boot campers, and also eventually that will be open as well, we can do CSS. Look at how it works. So we got multiple devices. So we got a smartphone, we got a tablet, laptop, and a TV. Yeah. So what's the goal here? What's the purpose? So we need to build a user interface, very simple in that case, right? But it will get more complicated, of course. Welcome to HTML and CSS. And on the right-hand side, we need to build the HTML. This is purely HTML, and then the CSS. So does anyone know how to change the text color in CSS?
There is a font color.
Font color. Let's try font color. Font color what? Yellow. Should be yellow, right? It's on the instructions. Let's see what happens. Let's try font color and see what happens. If we evaluate it, confetti or not confetti? No confetti, right? Why? Because look, we expected the text to be yellow. However, it's still white. So then you can see the diff. The pink color represents the difference pixel by pixel. It's not perfect, of course. Why is not perfect? Correct. CSS is not correct. Why is not correct? That's correct. Font color doesn't exist in CSS. Do you know this underline, the green one? Do you know which text editor are we using here? That's VS Code. You remember before we said VS Code is written in JavaScript. So what we did, we went to the source code of VS Code and we integrated it here. So all the shortcuts and all the tricks are available here. All the syntax highlighting, all these things, right? Which is pretty convenient. So let's replace font color with just color. You see, the line is gone. It's a good message. Let's see if that's correct or not. Last time I'll press the green button, guys. Will it work? Yes, it does work, right? So now you can see that the result is correct for every single device we're supporting. Yeah. So, any questions? Anything? No? Right? Because we got 1 hour already. We covered, 1 hour. So I would like to leave it here. I would like to say thank you very much for joining today. Now we go to the terrace. So if you want to get some fresh air, to have a drink, yes, let's go to the terrace to have a chat. Thank you, Walter, as well for your help. And again, on Monday, we start a new bootcamp. So if anyone wants to join professionally, wants to make 500 a day and all these things, let's have a chat now, because I'm sure we can help you. Thank you very much, guys, and looking forward to see you soon. Take care, guys.